So, what if I told you there's a secret code hidden in one ancient story? A key that could unlock the patterns of power that have shaped our entire world. It's a pretty bold idea, and today we're going to dig into it.
I mean, that's a huge question, right? But the argument we're looking at today suggests that if we just shift our perspective a little, we can uncover a hidden framework, one that explains a much, much bigger story. So let's get right to the core thesis.
And here it is. This is the central idea. The argument is that the political history of the Jewish people isn't just one story among many. Nope. Instead, it's a unique case study that reveals something fundamental about power itself and, its tendency to corrupt.
To really get this, though, we have to kind of adjust how we're looking at things. The author suggests we think about history like it's a giant, really intricate mosaic.
Think about it, right? With a mosaic, you can look at it in a few different ways. First, you've got the micro view. You get right up close and see every single little stone in detail. Then you can step back for the macro view, and you see the grand narrative, the big picture. But the argument here is that there's a third view, a deeper one, understanding the artist's hidden mental model, the thing that guided the whole creation.
So, that third view, that's what we're talking about when we say paradigm. It's the underlying framework of rules and assumptions that basically shapes how a society sees reality. In our analogy, it's the artist's vision before they even put down the first stone.
Okay, so if history is a mosaic, the argument goes that the actual stones that make up Hebrew history were fundamentally different from any other. And this is where their story really starts to stand apart. And you can see that core difference right here. While Greek historians like Herodotus were trying to record the truth from a human point of view, Hebrew history was written from God's perspective. It actually includes forces like evil as part of the narrative. The goal wasn't just to write down what happened, but to interpret it all through a divine lens.
And this unique perspective was propped up on three cultural pillars. First, this idea of a formless God. A concept that was completely unheard of at the time. Second, a society built on the rule of law through the Ten Commandments. And third, rituals of atonement, which were these constant reminders of moral failure and what that cost.
And here's the crucial point. These pillars were supposed to support a totally radical, new paradigm of power. We're not talking a monarchy, not an aristocracy, but a nation where power was distributed, where everybody participated, and where God alone was seen as the one and only king.
All right, let's step back and take that macro view. Let's see how this really unique idea actually played out. Because, as the author points out, that original plan, well, it didn't last.
And this is the crucial turning point. The people rejected this radical idea of shared power. They looked around at their neighbors and basically said, hey, we want a king just like them. And in their own scriptures, this is framed as a flat-out rejection of the paradigm, one they were warned would end in total tragedy.
And yeah, that prediction, it wasn't just talk. It absolutely came true. That demand for a king kicked off a whole chain reaction. You see concentrated power, which led to pride under King Solomon, which then led to the kingdom splitting in two, and it all came crashing down centuries later in total destruction and exile.
Which brings us to the central irony of this whole story. Their national history was supposed to be a lesson for the world about how dangerous power can be. But instead, they became a lesson to the world by falling victim to it themselves. They basically failed their own test.
So an ancient political failure. Why should we care about that today? Well, because according to the author, the story was never just for them. It was always meant to become a warning for everyone.
And it's not like they weren't warned. Throughout this whole decline, you had figures like Elijah, Isaiah, and Jeremiah showing up and repeatedly warning the leadership. The message was always the same. God was going to use foreign nations, Gentile powers, to bring judgment. But the ruling class, insulated by their own power, they just wouldn't listen.
But then, after the exile happened exactly as predicted, something pretty remarkable occurred. Their sacred texts, their entire history of success and, failure, were translated into Greek, which was the international language of the day. This translation became known as the Septuagint.
This was a total game changer. All of a sudden, their very specific national story became a global one. The non-Jewish world now had access to it, and the texts themselves hinted at a new era coming, an age of the Gentiles. The warning that was once for a single nation had just gone public. And that really leaves us with this final thought. If this one ancient story truly is a paradigm for the corrupting nature of power,
then what patterns from that story, the demand for strong rulers, the pride that leads to division, the refusal to listen to warnings, are still playing out in our own world today?